Okay, Chapter 4, Section 1. We're talking about research here. Chapter 4 is about research, collaboration, and presentation. So, this is the basics of research and what you have to do to find sources for a paper. It might not be second nature to you. A lot of people want to just write what they already know and say, well, I already know about this, so I don't need to do any research. I'm basically an expert myself. However, you're still in high school, so you don't have the authority behind your name that somebody else might who has a degree or, 5, 10, 20 years experience in a certain field. So what you have to do is sort of borrow their authority by quoting them, by writing down what they said and citing your source, telling your reader where you got the information so that they can go and check it and learn more or make sure you're not misrepresenting the facts. So what makes a source a good source? Mostly it depends on these. If they have an identified author with experience or an expertise in the subject being discussed, it is recent, it's within the last decade, last 10 years, unless you're talking about something like really advanced technology or newest trends, then you want within the last year. Some things move fairly slowly and only need about 10 years, within 10 years to be accurate. Some things change really, really frequently and need to be updated, within the last year. You need to back up claims with other evidence or publications. So basically, if I was writing, let's say, an argumentative essay to say that cell phones should be allowed in school, it can't just be my opinion because I'm biased. I'm a teacher. Of course, I don't want cell phones in my classroom. I'm going to need research. I'm going to need somebody to have done a study on how bad cell phones are for kids, on how much they increase distraction and how much they reduce learning. I'm going to need somebody to back me up, somebody who took special time to study it. Accuracy and reliability of online information. Now, a lot of people don't like Wikipedia. Wikipedia.org. But here's the thing about Wikipedia. Apparently you're going to go real slow. I should open this up earlier. At the bottom of each Wikipedia article, here we go, is a list of sources. And they're pretty good about keeping up with... I'm trying to multitask here, so I'm pausing. I'm sorry. Let me think of something. How about... Oh, I can think of cell phones. Mobile phone, okay. Wow, look at that. Even the picture's outdated. To an early smartphone, okay. See, look at this. History, types, infrastructure, hardware, software, sales, and each one of these is going to have a citation. Look at this. Every time they make a claim, okay, using a handset weighing 2 kilograms, 4.4 pounds, that is a specific piece of information, and then they put this here. Richard Heeks, 2008. See that? If I click this little 4, it takes me down here. Here's all the citations they used. They have quoted 99 different articles, books, chapters. That's intense. Meet Marty Cooper, the inventor of the mobile phone, from the BBC. So that was a news article with an interview of the inventor of the mobile phone. And it was written by Richard Heeks in 2008. and their particular source came from lines 26 through 33, or pages 26 through 33. That is intense. Okay, so that's how good research works. Is you make whenever you make a claim of something that is testably true or false, you back it up with where you got that information. Like if I was typing the same thing and I just said it weighed a ton, that wouldn't be good for an academic paper. Okay. So check the author. We did. Now the problem with a Wikipedia article in general is that it has no one author. It's being edited by whoever wants to edit it. So while it's long and impressive, the article itself isn't necessarily quotable. But some of the articles down here are. You could use this as a jumping off point and click through any of the things. Tracking a suspect by mobile phone. Here, you could click this, and this will take you to the BBC, the British Broadcasting Company. And there's this whole article about tracking people via their cell phones. Now, back here, does the online source contain a named author? Does the author have any credentials or qualifications? For most news articles, you could just assume they're a journalist. Does the source provide any and then you have to rely on the reputation of the thing they're publishing for. Like BBC is good, the big names like CBS, ABC, NBC are good. You start getting into questionable stuff if it's a really small thing or if it looks like it's just directly from somebody with a vested interest in it. Like, is soda good for you? And it's an article on the Pepsi website. Like you can't trust that. They're trying to sell you Pepsi. Does the source provide any contact information for a reader to contact the author? That's a bit much. I'm not sure we really need that. The source isn't written by an individual. Is the content authored by a legitimate source or organization? And that's where the question of Wikipedia being useful comes up to. Who are you writing for? If you were in college, some professors accept Wikipedia, some don't. I don't think Penn Foster accepts Wikipedia as a legitimate source. Let's see here. Decipher the purpose. Right, that's like what I was talking about with the Pepsi website. Are they trying to sell you something, or are they just trying to inform you? Judge the overall accuracy. Now, it's hard to judge accuracy on a subject you're still learning about, but that's why we read multiple things. Like, let's say you pulled up 3 separate articles about self-driving cars, and 2 of them said that self-driving cars use lasers to detect objects around them, and then the other one said that no self-driving car uses lasers. Well, he's being outweighed 2-1. So you gotta consider that third source might not be that good. If everyone else is agreeing on one thing and this guy's saying something else, then he might not be accurate. Look in appropriate places. Google Scholar. Yeah, Google Scholar brings up peer-reviewed articles. Well, frankly, the Google Scholar is a little hard because the reading level required to read some of those articles is like college level and beyond, and it can be hard to understand those articles. They're written for experts. It can be hard to understand what they're saying. Okay, so what is a primary source versus a secondary source? Primary source is, if you're talking about a historical event, it's somebody who was there, and a secondary source is somebody writing about it. So like, The primary source is the Gettysburg Address, and somebody writing a critique of that address is a secondary source. The address itself is primary, the critique is secondary. So primary source speeches, letters, diaries, laws, and legislation. Anything that is analysis of those things or written responses or critiques to those things, those are secondary. Created as a witness, interviews, newspaper articles from the time, original photographs, articles, textbooks, and history analyses. That's not to say that secondary sources are useless. They're very useful. But if all you have is secondary sources, then you start to play the game of telephone. Where you have a line of people in a room, and the first person makes up a phrase, and they whisper it to the second person, and then they whisper it to the third and the fourth, until it gets down to the end of the line, and the original phrase has been butchered, and nobody knows how or when it got messed up. But like, the first person said, "It gets cold in the wintertime," and then the last person says, "My shoes don't fit," and you're like, those sentences have nothing to do with each other. How did that end up there? That's because the primary source was the first person, secondary source was the second person, tertiary source, quaternary, pentenary. It just keeps going down the line until that original information is completely garbled. Okay. Identifying source. Read the following two passages. One is an example of a primary source, the other an example of a secondary source. This is a secondary source from Encyclopedia Britannica. This is going to be about stuff. And then let's see, where's the second one? The Factory Act is a primary source because it's a law that was written about child labor in what? 1802? When was it? This piece was first of two pieces of acquisition passed earlier. Okay, so it's after 1819. Okay. Well, it didn't tell us when it was. So let's see here. Oh, and I wanted to hit home. Okay. Exercise the legitimacy of sources. Read Revolution and the Growth of Industrial Society. Respond to the following based on your reading. Oh, it's a Britannica article. So when Wikipedia first started, people said it didn't have the authority that something like Encyclopedia Britannica had. If you don't know, Wikipedia is called Wikipedia because wiki is a word that means it's edited by the people who use it. It's an internet term. And pedia for encyclopedia. So it's literally an encyclopedia that is edited by the people who read it. And when it first started, any Joe Schmo could edit it, so it can't be accurate, was the claim. But over the years, more and more experts have got on there to defend the stuff that they themselves research. So it's become better and more reliable. Okay, Revolution and the Growth of Industrial Society, 1789 to 1914. Am I going to read that? Nah, that's too much. I won't subject you to that. What do you believe to be the purpose of this web page? This web page is to inform. It's the Encyclopedia Britannica. Does it appear to be objective? Well, yes. Again, I can just rely on the authority of the page itself. It's the Encyclopedia Britannica. It's been around for hundreds of years, and it's staunchly protected by an editorial board that doesn't let anything get through without vetting. What organization publishes information, and is it recent? Encyclopedia Britannica. And this. Let's scroll down to the bottom and see what it says. Social upheaval. How long is this? Okay. Oh, here we go. How about this? Info. No, site. Here we go. Contributors. Date published, February 4th, 2020. There you go. So that's really good. So it was published this year. So it's got the most accurate and up-to-date information. Overall, do you believe this article to be a credible source? Yes, I do. Okay. So what you want is when you're researching, the main thing you want is an article with an author. You need an author's name on there, because if nobody's willing to put their name on it, then that's not reputable enough to be worth your time. So let's see. Integrating sources. This is going to be important. Big wall of text. Okay, these are the ways to integrate your research. Integrate means to put together or to put inside. So like you're going to take that research and put it inside your essay. First thing you can do is summarize. Collecting the main idea. Research on resilience shows is their action phrase here. Example of using a signal phrase. That's a signal phrase. So instead of just jumping right in and summarizing, you tell the reader that you're about to say something that's a quote from someone else. But you're summarizing, so you're not going to use a quotation mark. You're just going to say it. Paraphrasing is similar to summarizing, only you're not doing the entire piece of research. You're doing one point or one sentence, one idea. So like in any one piece of research or article or something, it's going to have multiple ideas. Summarizing is trying to get the entire article into a couple of sentences. Paraphrasing is just doing one idea. Synthesizing. Several sources that share the same point. Multiple studies show. Many scholars believe. Quoting. That's the most common, is to take it directly out. So like if I went over here to this, but hey, come on now. What about you? Here we go. Okay, I could quote this. I don't like that mugshot. It's just staring into my soul. Okay. It is, I would quote this. It is relatively simple to follow a person via their mobile phone. Just put a quotation mark before and a quotation mark afterwards, and oh, now you load. And then at the end, so like here. This is from the last one. It is relatively simple to, what does it track? To follow a person via their mobile phone. And then, who wrote this? Hey, where's the name of the person who wrote this? Printable version. 404 not found. Thanks. Last updated 2005. Oh, dang it. I chose one without an author. Great example, man. Great example. Anyway, BBC. I will just put BBC. Wait a second. I got that from a Wikipedia, didn't I? Go backwards. Because you said it was Richard Heeks. Hey, there we go. There. Now that is what this looks like. That is a quote with a citation. And that's what your citation should look like. Now, don't copy and paste. A lot of you, because we have access to the internet, you start to copy and paste, but this is what happens. You go in, you do this, and you go paste, and look at that. It's a completely different font and size, and it looks different than the stuff around it. That is awkward, it's jarring, it's ugly, and it makes it really obvious that you cut and paste stuff. So it's better to type it out, or if you must cut and paste, you can do this. You can go highlight the stuff that you already have formatted, click Format Painter. This works in Google Docs and in Microsoft Word, and then highlight what you want to change, and it makes it go the same. See, now it all looks good. But you still have to add the quotation marks. Okay. Back to Penn Foster. Research through proper word choice. Okay, when writing a research paper, it's important to think simply. You need to choose words that express your ideas in a concise way. Concise meaning like short and to the point. Even though you may be using research that contains a lot of complicated academic content or jargon, the goal of a research paper isn't to write in a similar technical style or to make the paper sound smart. The goal is to communicate information, idea, and argument with clarity. Better way to say this is just go ahead and write how you talk. Your voice counts and is important, and so when you write that way, well, let me be more specific. Write the way you talk in school, right? So complete sentences, trying to get your point across in a good way. You don't have to go out of your way to sound smart because your research is going to make you sound authoritative. You're going to know what you're talking about by the time you're done reading your research. Oh, using an objective tone means keeping your opinions out of it. It's just that simple. The Industrial Revolution takes shape about the subjective. I believe the steam engine was the greatest and most important achievement of the Industrial Revolution. Yeah, that's a whole different type of writing. Is subjective, opinionated writing. That's a editorial, they call it. That's not what we're writing. We're trying to be as objective as possible. Just the facts. Okay, practice types of integration. Let's look at the flashcards before we end this particular one. 23 flashcards, you say. Research, we've already been over that. Print sources, those are things in print form, physical form, like magazines and newspapers. Online media sources, right? You know what that is. Primary source, the first person account, something that is a direct evidence of a thing that happened. Secondary source is something that came after the fact. An analysis, a critique, a review. Citing sources, that's the parenthetical, that's this here, Heeks, that's citing your source. In text is the one that happens, like that Heeks I just showed you, that's the one that happens in the text right after you make a quote. A works cited page comes at the end of your article, and that we'll go over that later. Timeline. That is a graphic that you can use to show things happening year by year, and which things happen first and which things happen next. Source integration is how you take the sources and put them in your paper in a natural, normal kind of way. Signal phrases are phrases that you put before a quote so that the reader knows a quote is coming. Summarizing is taking the entire article and shortening it down and putting it in your own words and giving a summary of the entire article. Paraphrasing is taking one idea inside the article and rewriting it in your own words. Synthesizing is taking multiple sources and putting them together into one point. Quoting is the direct quote, like we did over there with Heeks. Embedded text. Ideas or details from another source that fit smoothly in your essay. I'm not sure quite what they mean by that. If you take like an entire paragraph, I guess, from something else, that's what they're going for. Objective is the opposite of subjective. Objective means you are trying as best you can to remove your bias and your personal opinion and just state the facts. Subjective means that you are allowing yourself opinions and personal viewpoints. Plagiarism is taking someone else's work and claiming it as your own. They can also be accused of plagiarism if you just take a line from somewhere and don't quote it, don't put the quotation marks around it. That's plagiarism. Concise means short, sweet, and to the point. Jargon is specialized language used by a certain field. So like lawyers speak in jargon, doctors, scientists use a lot of jargon. How about this one? Pedagogy. Pedagogy means education. It's jargon from the teaching world. Accuracy. How do you define accuracy? Being without mistakes or errors. Yeah, okay. Last but not least, reliability. That is the quality of a paper to be trustworthy. And that does it for 4.1.